Let me tell you what this is all about. The bail bonds community has made a fortune over the years, predominantly off of the poor in New Jersey. And we now are stopping them from doing that. And they're pissed.
They're letting out convict, felon, convicted, gun-toting scum out of jail for free.
In 2014, the good people of New Jersey declared the criminal justice system a hopeless mess. Yeah. They voted to enact a totally new set of laws aimed at cleaning things up. Among other things, the new laws changed everything we've ever known about bail. Instead of determining bail by the charge that the person's been accused of, they're instead assessing it based on this 6-point scale, algorithm, sort of bringing Moneyball to the bail assessment here. And the ultimate result is that nonviolent offenders will no longer be issued bail. They'll be out on their own recognizance, typically with ankle bracelets and the like, ensuring that they're going to come back. And then people who are guilty of more violent crimes will be issued any bail at all. Totally different approach. It's supposed to, the design, of course, is to create a more efficient, effective law enforcement mechanism, save millions of dollars. The only person who's opposed to this is basically the most famous person in the history of American law enforcement, at least television-wise.
You're not telling me we got Dog the Bounty Hunter,
We got
do
Dog
we?
the Bounty Hunter.
Oh, yes. I know some very excited people out there have been waiting for our Dog the Bounty Hunter episode, and here it is.
I'm Jason Beckerman.
I'm Derek Kaufman.
And this is Behind the Bar.
Look, Jason, as you were describing, New Jersey had a cash bail system, like most other systems, where there was basically a chart. You looked at the offense, there was a certain amount, and they had to release you unless you were a flight risk based on the amount that you posted as bail. They've overhauled it completely. And that, as you said, I like that you said they brought Moneyball into it because they're doing a sophisticated system where they're assessing the real risk. What are we trying to guard for when we let someone out on bail? You're hoping that they come back for their hearing. So they said, let's look at the real factors that are in play here, whether that person is violent while they're out on the streets, whether that person has skipped hearings before. Those are the real data points that you're looking at to assess whether someone will come back for their hearing. So that's what they did. They did away with the cash bail system, and they said, let's look at these factors. And the reason they did it, there's a couple. There's 4 big reasons that I identified. So first, people have a right to a speedy trial. And what was happening in New Jersey is people were languishing for nonviolent offenses. They were thrown in jail. They couldn't make bail under the system.
So somebody would get a relatively low bail, $10,000, $20,000, but they were hopeless in an effort to collect that kind of money. So they would sit in jail for 6 months or a year, having committed allegedly a minor offense, but they just had no capacity to make bail.
Yeah, and bail bondsmen will take 10%, but sometimes that amount is huge. So even coming up with $1,000 or $2,000 off the cuff is hard for people to do. So they'd sit there for sometimes up to a year. And under the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution, you know this, you have a right to a speedy trial. And they were actually running right up against that limitation, and people were starting to assert that right in New Jersey.
I know it because I'm a trained lawyer, not because I've spent many years in prison or anything like that.
That's right. No, I don't know. You're a shady character.
Shady, yes.
But so this new law gives the judges more discretion. They would say, look, if it's a nonviolent offense, we're going to release you on your own recognizance if you meet these factors. For more serious offenders, the murderers and the violent criminals, they can actually hold you without bail. Right. So this overhauled the entire system. It used to be that if you were an armed robber, you got out on bail anyway, and they couldn't assess those factors. The big thing that was behind this law, though, was cost savings. So Chris Christie was heavily behind it because the jails were so overpopulated that this was costing the taxpayers a lot of money.
I heard an interview with Chris Christie, which I think we might play a part of, where he said that it could save up to $30 million per year by these adjustments to the bail system.
Yeah, that's the number I've heard. So the law passed. It's been in effect since January, and by the end of February 2017, the jail population was already down 30%. So immediately,
is that for real?
Yeah, that's what that was.
That's what you wrote on your paper?
That's what I wrote on the paper. And if it's on the paper, Jason, it's absolutely correct. It's verified.
Yeah, right. Wow, that's remarkable.
You can take that to the bank. So the jail population dropped dramatically because they were releasing all these people, and we'll get to why some people think that's a problem. But the other big reason was fairness, and you and I have talked about this a lot. Rich people were able to just get out on bail. They could put up their house. They had liquid assets they were able to put up, and poor people were sitting there languishing in jail on minor offenses. And so that's really the big impetus, other than the cost savings, is that it just seemed unfair to have a cash for bail system.
Right. Now, of course, everything comes at a cost, right?
Yep.
And the fact that 30% of the jail population is down means 30% of people who have been at least accused of committing an offense, are now back on the street, and that comes at a concomitant price. And now Chris Christie and the other officials in New Jersey and the people of New Jersey who voted this law into practice, is not passed by the legislature, it was through a referendum of the people, it changed the state constitution, they felt that it was worth the price. But let's not underestimate the price that might cause. And here to tell us a little bit more about that is our very special guest, Dog the Bounty Hunter. Dog, thanks so much for joining you. I know you're joined by a good friend of yours, Mike Donovan, who's the president of Nexus Services, who is funding many of the legal challenges, especially the ones in New Jersey. Is that right?
Yes, it's right. Thank you very much.
Dog, I want to ask you what right off the bat. We've heard a lot of good things about this law. According to the governor, it's going to save money. It's going to better address in a more efficient way the criminal justice system in New Jersey. What is it that you don't like about this law?
Well, almost everything. It's a complete failure. There are people that have actually died because of it. I don't see anything that it's doing. The police departments, a lot of the police on the streets, a lot of the judges, a lot of the criminal justice experts have said it is one of the worst laws they've ever seen. They're trying to take the deterrent out of crime. It is one of the worst laws that I've ever seen in my life.
And it's also important to note that this is a red herring, right? So the idea of reducing jail populations and reducing minority jail populations is really, really a good idea. The problem is New Jersey is worst in the nation in its rate of incarceration of African Americans, 12-1 that of whites, worse than any state in the South. And further, the people that are actually driving large-scale incarceration rates are the fat cats that own these private prison companies and bureaucrats, and they're the ones financing these bail reform initiatives.
Talk a little bit more about that. Like in criminal justice reform, as in every other aspect of life, follow the money to find out the true motivations. Tell me a little bit about this. These private jails, these private companies that make money from the state based on the vacillations of the prison population. Give me a little bit of insight on that.
Yeah, Geo Group is a really good example. Geo Group, which builds private prisons all over the country. They build private prisons for individual states. They build private prisons for the federal government. And that company is worth billions and billions of dollars, worth much more than the bail industry is ever worth. And those folks actually make money keeping people in jail. Because think about it, in order to build new jails, you've got to justify those jails by a need for a jail population. We all know, we've all seen jurisdictions build new jails with higher bed rates, and the first thing that happens is those jails come to capacity, because if you have the beds, you're going to fill them, right? Follow the money.
Well, that's a good point, but what do you guys make of Chris Christie's argument that the ones who are losing in this bail reform initiative are the bail bondsmen, and it's sort of putting them out of business, and that's what, and he thinks that's what's really motivating these critiques. What do you guys make of that?
Well, I think it's a fail on its face. The New Jersey bail bondsmen are out of business. Right. They've been out of business since January. So the New Jersey bail bondsmen watched this happen to them, right? They weren't particularly savvy about, hiring lobbyists and going to the Capitol and making sure this bail reform thing didn't happen. The idea that the private industry bail folks are out here driving this narrative is ridiculous when you consider the fact they didn't do it since 2014 when this initiative was happening. The people that are driving the initiative now are folks that are reacting to the consequences of bail reform. People are literally dying. And, it's actually problematic because the ultimate result of bail reform is that the people who are actually making money off of increased incarceration don't get affected. Just yesterday, the New Jersey Supreme Court, in a shocking decision, decided that defendants in detention hearings didn't even have the right to face their accusers. So New Jersey is on a long road to eventually being much more predatory in the way that it incarcerates people. And who does that benefit? Well, let's think. It's the people that own these jails and prisons.
In addition to the money, so we also have what is going to be the impact on crime itself through these initiatives. Dog, one of our producers here, Maddie, is a huge fan of yours. He's from Hawaii. He insisted that we tell you that, and he gives you single-handedly, I think, credit for cleaning up Hawaii is the term he used. Are you concerned, Dog, that these reforms are actually going to lead to increased crime, not just in New Jersey, obviously, but in other states that are going to follow New Jersey's trend?
Oh, well, they're trying to, but we're jumping on them as soon as they do. It's like this. There has to be a deterrent, okay? There has to be a deterrent so people won't do anything. For instance, if you get caught driving 110 miles an hour in a 55-mile-an-hour zone you're going to pay a fine. That detours you from doing that, or everyone would do it. You don't speed, you don't do things because it might cost you some money. They're going to let the criminals out of jail for free. No deterrent at all. Now, the guys I picked up, over 8,000 of them in 39 years, they're loving it. They're like, dog, isn't this great? Now, what they said is they wanted to do this for first-time offenders and for low-level crimes like graffiti, urinating on the sidewalk, smoking a joint. That is not what's happening. They're letting out convict, felons, convicted, gun-toting scum out of jail for free.
Like the guy that killed June Rogers' son, Christian Rogers, who had 28 prior arrests, multiple violent felony convictions, and he was caught by New Jersey State Police with a 9mm firearm in his possession. He was arrested for being a felon in possession of a handgun, and because of Chris Christie's bail reform, the judge had his hands tied, had to release Mr. Black. That person 3 days later shot and killed June Rogers' son in broad daylight, shooting him 22 times.
22 times.
That is a shocking reality.
Anecdotes like that can sometimes lead to bad policy, right? I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of, counterexamples where we've incarcerated people for extended periods of time without, because they didn't have the money to get out on jail and they were eventually found to be not guilty or whatever it is. I'm sure there's counterexamples, but you think on the whole, you're going to see an increase in violent crime as a result of these new laws?
One guy, sexual assault on a child, got caught trying to lure a 12-year-old. Other guy, 3,200 bags of heroin.
That's a lot of heroin.
That's a lot of heroin.
Let him out for free. You think he quit selling heroin? Now, 3,200 bags, bro. That's like, what? You think that guy quit? Is that, a detour? Oh, let's quit doing this. We got caught.
There was a statistic the governor used that 1,500 people are locked in jail in New Jersey because they couldn't afford to pay bail bonds. But you know what? When you actually pulled those names and read through it, that only 40 of them actually couldn't pay bail bonds. The others were held on probation violations or warrants and detainers. So the problem with these statistics is that they can always be made to say whatever they want. Just look at the reality of it. I mean, look at like you said, follow the money. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all going to understand what this is when you follow the money. Follow the money of bail reform, and the people doling out the cash aren't activists. They're people who have something to gain by incarcerating people on the other side of the criminal justice system. And for me, I mean, that's what people need to understand.
All right, Doug the Bounty Hunter, I know you need to go. Mike Donovan, thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate you calling in for today's discussion, and good luck with everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother.
So it was great to hear from those guys, a different perspective than I think you and I were bringing to it, and they make really good points. The one sort of pushback that we can give to the points that they made is, one thing we know is the status quo was broken, right? Not just in New Jersey, but across the country, our criminal justice systems are desperately in need of reform. And so this idea that a change, just because it might be motivated by self-interest, and I think obviously part of that is true. There is money. You got to follow the money wherever it goes. And I brought that point up with them. You got to follow it. And there may be self-interest in play here. There is something that needs to be done. And I think this was a valiant effort on behalf of New Jersey to do something, even though there might be problems with it.
Yeah, look, I agree with that. And also, it's hard for Dog the Bounty Hunter to be the one with this rallying cry, because we brought up his self-interest in this. The bail bonds industry is a venerable industry. It's been around for over 200 years. And you really can't... If that industry goes by the wayside, if this is successful, it really does spell doom for other jurisdictions. Now, he's in Hawaii and Colorado. They will surely follow suit if Jersey succeeds with this initiative.
And he made the point that this law has single-handedly wiped out the bail bondsman industry in New Jersey. And I take Bond at his word.
I take the dog at his word.
At his word that he's not speaking from a position of self-interest, but he also knows the industry incredibly well, and he knows a lot of the people in the industry, and it's hard to not have those motivations conflate.
Sure, this is the shot over the bow, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
They're going to be coming for everyone, and Chris Christie wants to be a leader in this initiative. Yeah. He's still a popular politician. He's got good ideas in some ways, and if this succeeds, it really does spell the end.
Now, success will always come at a cost, right? You're going to let more people out. He brought up the issue of more recidivism, right? People who are released immediately back on the street, the heroin dealers who goes back on the street, And all the ankle monitoring in the world, which is great, is not going to stop him from selling heroin. So there is a significant cost to be paid by letting criminals back out on the street.
And there's another point here, too. Now, part of this initiative is giving judges an extremely broad discretion. Chris Christie talks about this when he ever discusses bail reform. One of the problems with judicial discretion is you import all the judges' biases into the process. Now, they may look at these sort of factors and see them as race neutral, and they're not supposed to take race into account or ethnicity. But really, when you have humans running this process, you are going to have some of that bias imported, which you don't have in a cash bail system where you're simply looking at a schedule, and if they meet that schedule, they're released. That's a fairer system in a lot of ways.
It is. And one of the things in New Jersey, like almost every other state, has elected judges, and these judges are now going to your point, bring their biases in, and they're going to have to run on a platform of being tough on crime, which is everybody else's. And that may, when you give this kind of, vest this kind of discretion within judges, which is why, you sometimes get bad results, which is why legislatures constantly take that kind of discretion away from judges, because they want to neutralize the field here and not make it so judge dependent. And I can tell you, lawyers judge shop, right? You get in front of a judge that you know is law and order, and you try your best to get out from under that person's courtroom and into a more lenient judge, or vice versa if you're the other way if you're the prosecutor. So this is certainly not a panacea, but I keep going back to the point, and the dog and Mike Donovan have really good points here, really good points. I don't think these laws are perfect. I don't think that, and they certainly are, there's self-interest and special interests that are motivating and behind these efforts, but I think that we have to do something to address what really is a messed up criminal justice system.
Absolutely. What's that sound?
I think that's mail time.
All right, mail time. Remember to write in your questions and comments to behindthebar@tmz.com. We got a long letter from John. I'm going to take two portions from it because it is quite long, but I know both of you have read it in its entirety.
Took us to task a little bit.
I must say I was very disappointed with the extreme bias of the recent trans in the military episode.
Well, that's not a good start. But go on.
I know you guys lean left. It is Hollywood, but usually you play it pretty fair. It seemed here that there was no attempt to play devil's advocate and really argue the other side. The title called it irrational, and the word bigotry was thrown about. With this level of bias, it's not surprising no conservative would provide you an interview. And then he ends it with, I'm not arguing for or against, but I'm disappointed that neither were you. The president's tweets were written off as repugnant and some kind of civil rights issue without exploring the matter in a larger way. I also feel like the editorializing got a little away from its legality.
All right, I think, John, you make an excellent point in that we didn't offer the alternative to our argument that banning
transgenders from the military could make sense from a policy perspective.
Yeah, and also the president's motivations were bigotry as opposed to a true belief that this is bad for military. I will say, I don't want to get. I agree with the point. I don't want to go too far in this. If the president's comments were that he doesn't think that African Americans should be able to serve alongside white soldiers in the military, I don't think we'd have to give that both sides. And part of me thinks that the two are equivalent. And so it's hard for me to really give the other side equal time. But I do think it's important that we give it some fair shake. Derek, why don't you go ahead and do that?
Yeah. This one's difficult for us, right? Because it came out in a tweet. We were trying to parse the words. I think we made a valiant effort. We were looking down to the letter of his 140 characters that he expressed this huge sentiment. And I don't think we reached an unfair conclusion. But if there is an argument to be made, the military has a very special mission, and that mission is national defense. And to the extent that the inclusion of transgendered people compromises that core mission, and if there is empirical data to back that up, I think there could be some sort of legitimate, rational interest in precluding them from military service. I think it's a very, very dangerous argument, though. I think we used to make these types of arguments with integrating the Army with different races, and that's why Jason and I were so concerned about it as a civil rights issue. And not every argument, like you said, deserves equal time. I mean, Hitler was making arguments that the Jews were ruining the German Volk, and I don't think that argument deserves much time.
And also, the president did make the point that it would increase healthcare costs. We sort of looked into that a little bit and saw that it was a very small percentage of healthcare, but nevertheless, it would increase probably by tens of millions of dollars healthcare costs for the U.S. military and by extension the U.S. taxpayer. So,
but that wasn't equally applied because they provide healthcare in all sorts of other discretionary ways for Viagra and so forth.
But nevertheless, the arguments are there, John. You're absolutely right. We should have given a little more sort of quarter to that argument and explored it more. Apologize for that.
Yep.
Thanks for writing in, John. Next one up is from Clara. Kim Kardashian can't seem to catch a break. After listening to last week's episode, I was surprised to see that she was being sued again. I was wondering how you guys feel about this lawsuit, since neither of you seemed worried about the last week's lawsuit.
Oh, boo-hoo, Kim Kardashian. Seriously. I mean that. I'm getting
Your well of sympathy has run dry.
My well of sympathy ran dry in the course of a week. I mean, this is the 4th or 5th lawsuit that we've seen against Kim Kardashian for allegedly, and they're all allegedly, stealing somebody else's idea. And now big companies, and she's a big personality with a company, a large company as well, get sued. That's par for the course. You have to deal with it. It's a cost of doing business. But nevertheless, we're seeing a trend, not just of Kim, but of the Kardashian family, of sort of, being on the knife's edge of stealing some stuff. In this case, it's the phone case, what's called
the Lumi,
the
illuminated phone case.
The illuminated phone case, which we talked to another individual who claims that he patented that idea and has a registered patent for it. He claims Kim violated that. We have the makeup specialist from last week who sued, saying that she had ripped off her KKW trademark. We have the old Skechers lawsuits where Skechers not actually, she was making false claims on behalf of Skechers. We have Kylie with her lip kit where she even apologized for basically stealing the idea from a very well-known makeup artist.
Are you tagging Kylie or tagging Kim with Kylie's misdeeds?
Look, they're all part of the same family business here, and I'm just seeing a pattern and practice of not necessarily respecting the rights of others, even if they may technically be on the right side of the law, which in many cases they are. And I think Kim might even be in this case. At what point do we say enough is enough?
I look at each lawsuit on its merits. I think this one may be a little stronger for Kim, but there's an interesting wrinkle to this one that I wanted to bring up, which is Kim is being sued because she is actually part of the company that released the Lumi brand, at least according to the allegations in the complaint. So there's a difference. We did an episode about celebrity endorsements. If she had just stood on the sideline and said, I love my Lumi camera, and took a flat fee for saying, I love the lighting it gives me for my selfies, she wouldn't be facing this lawsuit. But when she took a profit-sharing role in this company, she's got to face the consequences of that. You'd have to trust your business partners, and now she's going to be potentially tagged with the liability of stealing someone's patented idea.
Now you
Whereas if she was a celebrity endorser, she probably wouldn't face it.
You said at the top that you don't think there's much merit in this lawsuit. Why do you think that is?
So this particular lawsuit, Lumi was the first to market by a long shot. Snaplight, which is the company that sued Kim Kardashian, came much later. They're saying that they had this technology from 2013, but Lumi has a patent from 2016, and when the patent office issued that patent, they already looked at all of the existing similar patents, including this 2013 patent, and found that Lumi's technology was sufficiently distinct to give them a patent for their product. Lumi, in a separate suit, has sued Snaplight and said, you're infringing on our patent. So this looks like a sort of retributory type lawsuit brought by Snaplight. And what I sense, and I don't know this to be true, is that Snaplight might have gone and got the patent after the fact by licensing older technology to get around the lawsuit that they were already facing by Lumi.
In some ways, Kim brought this on herself because she didn't allow Snaplight to go and compete against her in the marketplace. She went out, and when they came out with their product, was very targeted and went after them, and actually cost them a lot of business by writing letters to people with whom they were doing business. Snaplight was doing business, saying, "Hey, they're violating our patents. We want you to kill that business." Nobody wants to offend the mighty Queen Kim, and so a lot of those people, according to the lawsuit, dropped Snaplight as a vendor and went with Kim's company instead, or at least didn't allow Snaplight to compete. So and that's what Snaplight reacted so dramatically with.
Yeah. Just a quick clarification: Kylie was apologized for possibly stealing marketing photos, not the idea of the actual makeup.
Yes, that's true with respect to the Vlada picture.
Right. She wasn't accused of stealing the lip kit. She was accused of stealing
the artist's look of a bleeding lip.
Yes.
And that is it for mail time.
All right. Thanks, guys. So give us a review, write in, and join next week.
Well put, Derek. Give us a review, write in.
You always do the ending, but I was waiting for Godot. Go ahead.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. We will see you again next week with another exciting episode of Behind the Bar. Thanks for watching. If you want more nerdy deep dives into the legal side of celebrity news, hit our subscribe button right here.
And check out our previous episode over here.